According to MEOW, meaning is affordance as weighted by salience and valence. But what are these things and how do they relate? One way to think about them is as a triangle. Keep in mind that MEOW, the mediated encounter ontology of the world, treats mind and world as post hoc rationalizations of encounter. We do not first receive a ready-made world on one side and a private mind on the other, and then somehow connect the two. Rather, we undergo encounter, and only afterward stabilize distinctions such as mind and world. That also means the world we experience is not simply passively present, waiting to be taken in. We arrive with antecedent history, embodied capacities, habits, needs, and expectations, and these all help structure what the encounter comes to mean. Not fully captured in this diagram is the role of attention, of the countless things, sounds, and events that might in principle be noticed. Our perceptual faculties and situational constraints sharply limit what is likely, and perhaps even what is possible, to enter awareness. This is where affordance, salience, and valence come in. These are not three steps in a neat sequence. They are better understood as interdependent aspects of encounter, more like a web than a chain. Their relative weighting alters how the same thing may be encountered at different times, under different conditions, or by different people. So let us begin with the first pass. Affordance is what the encounter makes possible. Salience is what stands out. Valence is how what stands out matters. Let's begin with affordance, not because it is most important, but because it begins with the letter A, and apparently alphabetical order still has some dignity left. If meaning is salience weighted affordance structure, what is affordance? Affordance names the action possibilities that arise in encounter. As living beings encounter an environment, things show up in terms of what can be done with them. A door may be opened, a bench may be sat on, stairs may be climbed. This assessment is often precognitive. We do not usually stop and infer these possibilities discursively. We simply find ourselves already oriented to them. Take water as an example. For a human being, water may be drinkable, swimmable, washable, heatable, coolable, navigable, fishable, or drown-inable. For a fish, it is also swimmable, but more than that, it is habitat. For a water bug, it is a surface to stand on. The point is that affordances are relational. They are not fixed properties floating in the object alone, nor are they arbitrary inventions of the subject. They arise in the encounter between organism and environment. Notice, too, that affordance by itself is not inherently good or bad. A thing may afford many possibilities without yet being urgent, relevant, attractive, or threatening. That is where salience and valence enter. So what is salience? If affordance names the possibilities that arise in encounter, salience names the differential weighting by which some aspects of that encounter come forward. In simpler terms, salience is what stands out. Not everything in a situation matters equally. Some features press forward whilst others recede. If you are tired, you may suddenly notice benches you would otherwise ignore. If you are looking for a friend in a crowd, faces and familiar voices become more prominent. If you are searching for danger, movements, shadows, and unusual sounds take priority. A familiar example is what happens after you buy a particular car. Before buying it, you barely notice that model. Afterwards, you seem to see it everywhere. The cars were there before. What changed was not the objective population of vehicles, but the salient structure through which they appeared to you. I met my wife in the mid-1990s, but it turns out we had frequented some of the same places in the mid-1980s. We may well have crossed paths earlier, but I had no reason then to pick her out of the field. Once a person matters to you, recognizing them carries a different weight. That's the basic point. Salience is not mere attention in the thinnest sense. It is the weighting of relevance relative to the kind of being you are, your history, your needs, and your current condition. Now to valence. Valence concerns how what stands out matters for the continued organization of the encountering system. In plainer language, valence concerns whether something bears positively or negatively upon persistence, support, threat, attraction, aversion, refuge, danger, and so on. If you are alone in the woods, sounds and movements may take on a heightened threat value. If it begins to rain, shelter becomes not just available, but significant. If a house is on fire, a door that would normally pass unnoticed may suddenly become extremely salient because it now matters as a possible exit. Valence, then, is not simply emotion, though emotion may be one way it is felt. It is more basic than that. It names the consequential loading of the encounter relative to self-maintenance. So if affordance concerns what can be done, and salience concerns what stands out, valence concerns how what stands out matters. Taken together, these give us a way to understand meaning. Meaning is not something pasted onto an otherwise neutral world after the fact. Meaning is the structure of the encounter itself, the salience-weighted affordance structure, with valence helping determine how that weighting matters for a self-maintaining being. So, to restate the trio, affordance concerns what the encounter makes possible, salience concerns what comes forward within it, and valence concerns how those salient features matter for the persistence of the system involved. To make this more concrete, I'll give a personal example. When I visited the American South, I found the region's much celebrated Southern hospitality unexpectedly disorienting. People were friendly to a degree that, to me, altered the social field. As a single male, I was used to interpreting smiles, tone, and conversational warmth in one way. In that environment, the same sorts of cues carried a different salience and valence. Every second interaction seemed to require additional interpretation. Is she merely being polite? Is she interested? Am I misreading this entirely? Frankly, it was exhausting. Life is easier in New York City. The affordances of the situation were not wholly different. Conversation was still possible, attraction was still possible, social navigation was still possible, but the salient structure and valence loading had shifted, and with them the meaning of the encounter. That is the broader point. Meaning is not just out there in the environment, nor is it simply projected from in here by the mind. It arises in the structured relation between organism and world, in what can be done, what stands out, and how it matters.